400 hours, Philippine Sea, deep international waters. The massive carrier strike group carves a phosphorescent wake through the pitch-black ocean. Thick cloud cover smothers the moonlight, blending the horizon into an endless void of dark gray. On the flight deck, a lone mechanic secures a tie-down chain against a gust of humid wind. The hum of the nuclear reactors provides a low, vibrating constant beneath the steel plating. It is a moment of absolute disciplined calm. Inside the chilled air of the Combat Information Center, rows of blue screens cast a ghostly pallor on the faces of the watch crew. A single status light on the main communications board flickers red. It pulses once, twice, then resets to green. The communications officer blinks, leans forward, and taps the glass. He frowns. The light blinks again, faster this time. A jagged line of static tears across the primary tactical display. The officer hammers his keyboard. The screen does not respond. Suddenly, the digital map of the Pacific fractures into pixelated noise. A high-pitched electronic squeal erupts from the server racks lining the back wall. The sound drills into the ears of the crew. Cooling fans inside the mainframe computers spin up to maximum RPM, sounding like jet engines spooling for takeoff. The main holographic table flickers violently, the blue friendly icons distorting into shapeless blobs. Sparks shower from a console in the corner. A sailor jumps back, shielding his face as a monitor explodes outward. Glass shards spray across the linoleum floor. The smell of ozone and burning plastic instantly fills the room. "Cut the hard line!" the watch commander roars, slamming his fist onto the metal desk. Two technicians dive for the manual breaker switches. They yank the heavy levers down with both hands. Nothing happens. The surge bypasses the physical cutoffs. The screens glow brighter, shifting from blue to an angry, flashing crimson. Text crawls across every monitor in the room, scrolling too fast to read. The infestation spreads to the helm control. The digital compass spins wildly. The overhead lights die with a loud pop, plunging the command center into darkness illuminated only by the strobe light flashing of corrupted monitors. The fleet is infected. 4:15 hours, command bridge, lead aircraft carrier. The heavy smell of brewing coffee mixes with the sharp tang of anxious sweat. Rain lashes against the reinforced blast glass, blurring the dark shapes of the escort ships in the distance. The bridge crew stands rigid. The gentle hum of electronics suddenly changes pitch, rising to a piercing whine. The main tactical display, a table-sized screen showing the entire Pacific theater, flickers once, then locks. The satellite uplink status bar drops from green to 0 in a split second. The digital map freezes. A technician swipes his finger across the glass surface. The image does not move. He swipes again, harder, nothing. "Main bus failure," the systems officer barks. The glitch moves like a virus through the bridge's nervous system. The GPS coordinates on the overhead monitors vanish, replaced by jagged lines of white noise. The encrypted chat channels used to coordinate the fleet snap shut. The speakers that usually carry the chatter of pilots and captains fall dead silent. On the mast towering above the flight deck, the massive satellite dishes grind to a halt. They slew violently to the left, hit their mechanical stops, and freeze, pointing uselessly at the empty ocean. The data stream is severed. "Switch to backup inertial navigation," the captain yells, striding across the deck. The helmsman reaches for the analog switch. He flips it. The digital compass spins rapidly in a circle, unable to find north. The entire network crashes. Every screen on the bridge turns a solid, lifeless blue. The ship is now a 100,000-ton chunk of steel floating blind in the dark. Outside, the navigation lights of the nearby destroyer blink out, leaving only the crushing darkness of the storm. 0430 hours, fleet formation. The ocean heaves under the weight of the steel leviathans. Rain sheets down in torrential curtains, hammering the gray hulls. The formation moves through the water in a tight phalanx, relying on precise digital station keeping to avoid collision. Suddenly, the navigation lights on the starboard destroyer wink out. Then the frigate to the rear plunges into darkness. Inside the Combat Information Center of the lead cruiser, the primary air search radar completes one sweep and stops dead. The glowing green arm that circles the screen vanishes. The display dissolves into a blizzard of white static. "Contact lost!" the radar operator shouts, slapping the side of the monitor. The radio operator jams his headset against his ear. He toggles the frequency knob frantically. "Battle Group Alpha, respond. Battle Group Alpha, actual." Only a harsh, rhythmic hissing sound replies. The encryption keys have been wiped. The radio emits a high-pitched screech that splits the air. The operator rips the headset off and throws it onto the console. On the flight deck of the carrier, the Fresnel lens landing system, the meatball used to guide pilots goes black. The deck edge lights flicker and die. The ship is now an invisible island in a black sea.
Get the signal lamps up, now!
The Admiral roars, storming onto the wet bridge wing. 2 signalmen rush to the heavy steel mounts. They yank the covers off the Aldi's lamps. They squeeze the triggers. Beams of intense white light slice through the driving rain, sweeping the dark water. The light catches the bow of the nearest destroyer. It is too close. Without the computer link, the escort ship has drifted inward. The beam illuminates the panicked face of a lookout on the opposite deck, shielding his eyes from the glare. The fleet is blind, deaf, and closing in on itself. 445 hours, port bridge wing, guided missile destroyer. The rain intensifies, turning the world into a blur of gray water and black sky. The ship pitches violently in the growing swell. Without the digital autopilot to make micro-adjustments, the 9,000-ton vessel drifts sluggishly to port. The rhythmic thrum of the engines remains constant, but the heading slips. A lookout wipes the stinging salt spray from his eyes and squints into the gloom. A shadow materializes in the mist. It is not a cloud. It is a solid vertical wall of steel, rising 60 feet out of the water. The aircraft carrier is less than 200 yards away and closing fast.
Collision course!
The lookout screams, his voice cracking over the wind. Inside the bridge, the captain grabs the railing. He looks out the side window. The massive gray hull of the carrier fills the entire view, looming like a skyscraper falling sideways.
All engines back emergency! Hard right rudder!
The captain bellows. The helmsman spins the heavy brass wheel with both hands, straining against the resistance of the manual hydraulic backup. He slams the throttle levers backward. The destroyer shudders. The propeller shafts grind as they reverse rotation, fighting the forward momentum of the massive ship. The bow of the destroyer swings agonizingly slowly to the right. The hull lists sharply to port, tilting 40 degrees. Unsecured coffee mugs, binders, and heavy manuals slide off the chart tables, crashing onto the deck. A junior officer loses his footing and slams into a bulkhead. The gap between the ships shrinks to 50 yards, then 30. The roar of the carrier's wake sounds like a freight train. A massive wave, displaced by the carrier's bulk, slams into the side of the destroyer. The smaller ship rolls violently. Spray crashes over the bridge wing, drenching the lookouts. The destroyer's bow clears the carrier's stern by mere feet. The steel hull groans under the stress of the turn. The wake of the carrier washes over the destroyer's flight deck, dragging a parked helicopter toward the edge of the safety netting. The chains hold, snapping taut with a metallic crack. The destroyer spins away into the dark, leaving a churning trail of white foam in the black water. 500 hours. Starboard lookout platform, aircraft carrier. A dull, gray dawn bleeds across the eastern horizon, revealing the chopping whitecaps of the Philippine Sea. The rain eases to a cold drizzle. On the exposed catwalk, a petty officer wipes moisture from the lenses of his heavy optical binoculars. He rests his elbows on the wet steel gunnel to steady the image. The unnatural silence of the ship's electronic systems hangs heavy over the deck. He scans the horizon line. He freezes. He adjusts the focus wheel. Low against the water, barely skimming the wave tops, 4 white streaks cut through the gray mist. They look like scratches on a photograph. They are not clouds. They are exhaust trails. The streaks grow longer. At the tip of each trail, a metallic glint flashes, then a second flash, then a dozen. "Vampire! Vampire! Inbound!" the lookout screams, his voice tearing from his throat. He slams his hand onto the brass manual alarm bell. Clang, clang, clang. Inside the bridge, the captain grabs his binoculars. He sprints to the starboard window. He raises the glass. He sees them. A swarm of sea-skimming anti-ship missiles rushes toward the fleet like a pack of angry wolves. They fly silent, hovering 10 feet above the water, invisible to the ship's dead radar. They are 5 miles out, closing at supersonic speed.
Brace for impact!
The captain roars into the powered-down handset, hoping the analog sound-powered phone lines still work. All hands, brace for impact. On the horizon, the white smoke trails merge into a wall of incoming death. The missiles make a sharp, synchronized turn. They lock onto the heat signatures of the drifting ships. The roar of their engines reaches the deck, a low rumble that vibrates the steel plates under the sailors' boots. 5:02 hours, starboard gun walkways laid destroyer. The morning air vibrates with the terrifying, high-pitched scream of approaching turbine engines. The white domes of the automated rotary cannons sit motionless, their radar eyes dead. The 6-barreled guns point harmlessly at the clouds, ignoring the death skimming the waves. A gunner's mate sprints across the wet, non-skid deck, his boots slamming against the steel. He reaches the manual control station for the aft cannon. He yanks the emergency release lever. It is stuck. He kicks it with his boot. The rusted pin snaps. He throws his weight against the heavy steel crank, spinning it wildly. The massive gun mount jerks. It rotates slowly, grinding against the gears without hydraulic assist.
Target bearing 150.
A petty officer yells, pointing a trembling finger at the sea. The gunner's mate looks through the optical iron sights. The incoming missile is a silver blur, growing larger by the second. He squeezes the manual triggers. The rotary cannon roars. A 6-foot flame erupts from the barrels. A stream of tungsten bullets tears into the sky, sounding like canvas ripping apart. The tracers arc over the water, splashing harmlessly 200 yards behind the target. The manual tracking is too slow. On the bridge wing, a Marine drops to one knee. He hoists a portable missile launcher onto his shoulder. He squints into the rubber eye cup. He waits for the tone. He pulls the trigger. The rocket motor ignites with a sharp whoosh, scorching the deck behind him. The missile spirals out, chasing the heat of the enemy threat. The enemy missile jinks. It banks hard left, dodging the counterfire. It levels out. It aims directly for the ship's midsection. The roar becomes deafening, drowning out the shouting of the crew. ZO 505 hours, amidships, lead destroyer. The world contracts into a single point of blinding white light. The missile impacts the hull just above the waterline, punching through the reinforced steel plating like a needle through fabric. For a fraction of a second, there is no sound, only the violent buckling of the metal. Then the warhead detonates. The explosion rips the ship open from the inside out. A massive fireball expands instantly, consuming the crew mess and the central corridor. The blast wave hammers against the bulkheads, shearing the steel rivets. The entire superstructure of the 9,000-ton vessel lifts bodily out of the water, shuddering violently. Thick black smoke erupts from the wound in the ship's side. A column of fire shoots 200 feet into the air, turning the gray dawn into a hellish orange. The blast vaporizes the starboard gangway. The shockwave travels through the steel deck, knocking every sailor on the bridge off their feet. Glass shatters in every porthole, spraying inwards like diamond dust. Deep inside the hull, the main fuel lines rupture. Thousands of gallons of diesel fuel spray onto the superheated metal. The secondary explosion is even louder. It tears a jagged hole 30 feet wide through the main deck. A radar mast, twisted and scorching, detaches from the superstructure. It cartwheels through the air, trailing black smoke. On the adjacent aircraft carrier, the flight deck crew dives for cover. The burning radar mast from the destroyer arcs across the water. It crashes onto the carrier's flight deck with the force of a falling building. The impact crushes a parked fighter jet, flattening the cockpit and snapping the wings. Burning debris showers the deck. A jagged piece of hull plating, glowing red hot, skids across the non-skid surface, slicing through a stack of fuel crates.
Damage control! Fire on the flight deck!
A yellow shirt handler screams, pointing at the rising flames. Back on the destroyer, the ocean rushes into the gaping hole in the hull. The water mixes with the burning diesel, creating a floating lake of fire inside the ship. The vessel groans, a deep, metallic screeching sound that vibrates through the bones of the survivors. The ship lists sharply to starboard, dipping the open wound into the sea. Steam hisses violently as the salt water hits the inferno. Bodies lie scattered across the tilted deck. A sailor pulls himself up by a railing, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. He looks at the midsection of his ship. It is gone. Only a twisted, burning crater remains. The air smells of sulfur, burning oil, and seared meat. 05:15 hours, deck 4, below the hangar bay, aircraft carrier. The darkness is absolute, broken only by the erratic, jerking beams of handheld flashlights. The air tastes of burning jet fuel and melting rubber. Heat radiates through the steel floor plates, cooking the soles of combat boots. The ventilation fans are silent, allowing a thick, suffocating layer of smoke to pool against the ceiling. A damage control team gathers at the heavy blast door leading to the starboard sponson. The metal wheel on the door glows a faint, dull orange. The paint on the bulkhead bubbles and peels away in strips.
Open it!
The chief petty officer yells, his voice muffled by a gas mask. Two sailors grab the hot metal wheel with gloved hands. They heave. The latch disengages with a metallic clank. The door swings inward. A wall of black smoke punches the team in the chest. The force knocks the lead sailor backward onto the non-skid deck. Inside the compartment, flames lick up the walls, consuming a rack of hydraulic fluid canisters. The automatic foam nozzles hang dry from the ceiling. The computer that controls the valves is dead. The fire roars unchecked, sounding like a jet engine running at full power.
No pressure on the main line!
A nozzleman screams, squeezing the trigger of the heavy fire hose. A trickle of water dribbles out. The electric pumps are offline.
Manual override, now!
The chief barks. 4 sailors sprint to the bulkhead. They locate the heavy iron handles of the manual backup pump. They seize the cranks. They spin them furiously. Their muscles strain. Veins bulge in their necks. The rhythmic clack-clack-clack of the mechanical pump echoes in the corridor. The hose jumps on the deck like a living snake. It expands hard and heavy. The nozzleman braces his legs. He opens the bail. A high-pressure jet of seawater blasts into the heart of the fire. The water hits the burning hydraulic fluid. A cloud of superheated steam explodes outward, engulfing the team. They do not retreat. They lean into the heat, blinded by the white fog, fighting the inferno one crank at a time. 5:30 hours, flight deck, aircraft carrier. Thick, oily smoke drifts across the flat steel runway, obscuring the morning sun. The deck is a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered glass. Exhausted sailors in colored jerseys push the wreckage of a burning tractor toward the deck edge. They heave together, shoving the flaming debris into the ocean below. The air is heavy with the smell of spent explosives. Pilots sit strapped into the cockpits of their fighter jets, engines idling with a frustrated whine. They are ready to fight, but they are chained to the deck. A new sound tears through the cloud layer. It is a high-pitched dual-tone scream. Two dark shapes drop out of the overcast sky, diving steeply toward the carrier. They are enemy fighter jets.
Air raid! Take cover!
The air boss bellows over the one working loudspeaker. The enemy jets level out at deck height. Orange muzzle flashes sparkle from their noses. A line of explosive cannon shells stitches across the flight deck. The sound is like a jackhammer striking a metal sheet. The rounds impact the steel plating, sending showers of hot sparks flying. A parked fighter jet sits loaded on Catapult 1. The pilot grips the controls, screaming into his dead radio. The launch officer on the deck jams the manual fire button. Nothing happens. The steam valves, controlled by the fried network, refuse to open. The shuttle remains locked. The massive aircraft is a sitting duck. The strafing run hits the parked jet. Heavy 30mm rounds punch through the aluminum skin. One shell strikes the external fuel drop tank. The jet disintegrates in a ball of yellow fire. The explosion flips the aircraft onto its back, crushing the canopy. The blast wave knocks a row of mechanics off their feet. The second enemy jet roars over the bridge tower. So close, the vibration rattles the teeth of the officers inside. It banks hard, showing its belly, and drops a cluster of unguided bombs. They tumble end over end. They strike the aft elevator. The deck buckles. The heavy steel platform loaded with munitions collapses downward. A crate of missiles slides into the hole, vanishing into the hangar bay below. The enemy pilots hit the afterburners, climbing vertically back into the clouds, untouched. The carrier's air wing remains grounded, burning and broken. 600 hours, 300 feet below the surface, Philippine Sea. The Virginia-class attack submarine hangs suspended in the crushing black pressure. Inside the control room, the lighting is a dim combat red. Silence rules here. No hum of ventilation, no clatter of boots. Crewmen speak in whispers, their faces bathed in the crimson glow of the instrument panels. The air is recycled and stale. The sonar operator presses his headphones tight against his ears. His knuckles turn white as he grips the console desk. He hears it. The physics of sound and water carry the violence from miles away. The groaning of twisting steel, the dull, heavy thuds of hull breaches, the specific, terrifying sound of a ship breaking its back. He turns to the captain. He removes one ear cup. "Surface contacts breaking up, sir," he whispers. Multiple hull popping noises, heavy screws overhead, hostile signatures. The captain stands in the center of the con. He looks at the dead digital plot table, then at the analog chart spread out by the quartermaster. He does not need a satellite link to know the 7th Fleet is burning. He looks at the weapons officer. "Make tubes 1 through 4 ready in all respects," the captain orders. His voice is cold iron. "Make tubes 1 through 4 ready, aye," the weapons officer repeats. He flips the red plastic covers off the firing switches. His fingers hover over the buttons. "Flood tubes." A loud rushing hiss vibrates through the pressure hull as water fills the launch tubes. The submarine grows heavy in the bow. "Open outer doors." A deep mechanical clunk reverberates through the steel floor. The hydraulic arms force the heavy steel caps open against the ocean pressure. "Firing point procedures," the captain says. "Match bearings on sonar contacts. Shoot 1, shoot 2, shoot 3, shoot 4. The weapons officer depresses the triggers. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Compressed air slams into the breach. The 7,000-ton submarine shudders violently, kicking backward with the recoil. Outside in the black water, 4 heavy torpedoes erupt from the bow. Their counter-rotating propellers spin up to a high-pitched whine. The guidance wires spool out behind them. The weapons accelerate, tearing through the deep current at 50 knots. They pitch up, climbing toward the surface, hunting the heat signatures of the enemy fleet above. The hunter has become the killer.